And we're live. Mr. David UK, thank you so much for stopping by today.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
We have got a shit ton to talk about today. You have had an incredibly extraordinary life, but I got to say, you are the very first guest I've ever had who has kind of helped make a first or second degree connection between myself and Dirty Harry himself, Clint Eastwood.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a fun moment in my life. I have a letter of reference from Clint, having worked for him.
Well, what does he say in the letter? What can Dirty
You
was
know
he
what?
Dirty Harry at that point, or was were
I
you fistful of silver
It
dollars?
was right around. It was a little post. All the spaghetti western stuff.
Okay.
I had. It's part of my career journey, or life journey. But I had moved to California, and I got a job at his restaurant, Hog's Breath Inn in Carmel. And he came in every Friday or Saturday night with a friend or two of his, and he was single at the time and hilarious, and women just fell at his feet, and he would sign, his name on their arms and lipstick, and
Oh, nice.
they're like, sign anywhere, please. And he was such a nice guy, such a nice guy.
Well, we're gonna come back to that later today. We're gonna come back to a lot of stuff, but when we were talking about this in pre-production, I found that it was very hard to kind of like summarize everything you currently do in the media industry. So we're just going to start with you are a serial media entrepreneur or just a serial entrepreneur in general. And we'll bring it full circle and talk about your different businesses, but can you just rhyme off the handful of businesses that you have a stake in right now and running?
Killers have given a bad name to cereal. It's like, but yeah, everything but a serial killer. Serial entrepreneur. Yeah, yes, I am at heart. I, I started mowing lawns. Newspapers I found, working for the man. So I said, I'll just go neighbor to neighbor and mow their lawns. That was the beginning. And then, in hot in school, if I can jump around a bit, if you don't
Yeah, go
mind,
for it,
when
please.
I, uh,
Yeah.
when I went to Lakefield, I got a scholarship to go, and my mom and dad were not wealthy, and I got very fortunate through a connection through my uncle, who was a principal of a school, found a woman who wanted to put them through school anonymously. So I got a $35,000 a year education grant for 5 years to go to Lakefield. So I was a kid, very young, going to a school with Eatons and just, some of the richest kids in Canada. And honestly felt a little bit out of place. And they had a sport called for hockey, and I couldn't play hockey. My dad never taught me how to skate. Um, and if you during winter season, if you couldn't play hockey, you got ended up on this thing called slash hockey, which is you're just hacking away. And I said, I can't. I'm not going to do that. So I went to my teacher, because all the teachers taught sports. We had an ex Boston player teaching our history and hockey. And so my teacher was this ski team coach. And I said to him, I said, you need a ski team photographer. I was like amateur photography, grade 10, and convinced him to have a ski team photographer. So I became a ski team photographer. So I got to go every day with the team, 5 days a week, ski for free. Well, it wasn't free, but anyway, ski. Um, and then I discovered ego of these athletes. So I would sell them 8x10 glossies of themselves
Oh,
going through,
smart.
you know,
Yes.
and I did it on school paper. The school will probably hate me now,
Nice.
So I was making $10 a pop, and then I started filming all sports, and I had an income to keep up with all the allowances the other kids had to spend at the tuck shop, which I didn't have. So yeah, anyway, the entrepreneurship just keeps going on and on.
And you've got, like we'll come back to wanna come back to your early life, but just to set it up right now, how many different businesses do you currently have in the media business? Like, the one that I know the most where I got to know you and I worked with your business partner, Napoleon, was Wired Carbon.
Yeah, yeah, wire carbon's definitely a mainstay. I've had that for about 12 years. I had Q Digital Media, which I had for probably about 12 years as well, which I sold about 4 years ago. Um, I had I've had companies that I've rebranded and used again. I started a company called Pros and Content, which was meant to be a production company. Certain partners left. My model has always been that I can run one company really efficiently, but I need a main business partner to run multiple companies. So
Mm,
I need a partner in.
gotcha.
So that's always been my model, and it always has to be very, very symbiotic to what I do. Not that I would start a hair salon, and I could start a restaurant because I did restaurants for many years. But um, so Wire Carbon was very symbiotic to Wire Carbon. Sorry, Q Digital Media was very symbiotic to Wire Carbon. Might want to correct that one.
No, it's all good. So, because what you're saying by right there is that I remember Q Digital, it was an ad network, but I guess Wired Carbon was created to work on the back end to make sure campaigns were set up properly.
Well, Wirecard was I needed an in-house ad ops, and then there was no in-house ad ops
Okay.
company in Canada. And the Napoleon, who I'd hired, who was awesome, worked for me for a year. And I'm like, you know what? Ad ops people are really hard. They jump to keep. And I said, dude, I think there's an opportunity for us to create a company. Do you want to become a business partner? And I've done this with a lot of people. I've created businesses from people I work with and comfortable with, we've dated, so to speak. um and then we got the license to resell Google technology in North America, not just Canada. So we're kind of a company with not one of 9 licenses, so it's a very unique proposition. But when I shut down the branded side of Pros and Content, I then was looking for influencer marketing, and I brought in interns. I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, I know there's money here and brands are interested in this and agencies. I see it developing. Uh, and I was on the phone with a buddy of mine who was the past president of Warner Digital Films, Apple Digital, Yahoo, and he went independent. And we were just catching up because we'd worked in Hong Kong 20 plus years ago. And he said, and I'm like, what are you doing these days? And he goes, oh, I just I started a CEO as of this like startup called Tagger. I'm like, what's Tagger? And he goes, well, let me show you. And he shows me, and I go, that's my silver bullet. This is what I've been looking for. So I got the license for Tagger. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna drinking the Kool-Aid on this. Let me sell the SaaS, because I was already selling Google SaaS.
Mm.
And I kind of like, I'm kind of liking SaaS. SaaS is, like electricity, kind of makes money while you sleep. And then I invested in the company as well, and we exited that in 2023.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. The high school that you went to, was it Lakeland or Lakefield? I'm gonna mess it up.
Lakefield. It was
Lakefield, that was in Oakville.
no. So
No, okay, that
yeah,
wasn't in
born in
Oakville.
Oakville, grew up in Oakville. Went to my uncle's school, Jesse Ketchup, up in Toronto in grade 4, and then progressed over to Lakefield, which was a private school near Peterborough.
Oh, okay, and this was a
Yeah.
boarding school.
It was a boarding school, and it was all boys. So needless to say, I went absolutely crazy when I was 18 and got out. And that'll lead to the why I never went to university. I'm like, I'm done with school.
You think if you had gone to, like, a typical co-ed school, high school, you probably would have, gone to
Well,
college or university?
so I graduated Lakefield in grade 12, and this is while there was still grade 13. But I wanted to experience high school in a like regular high school. So I went to a high school in Oakville for grade 13. I wanted to squeak in one more season of football. Love football. Captain of the defense a couple years in a row. Went to school, and then all of a sudden, all my studies are exactly what I had taken in grade 12.
So it
So
was
I didn't even feel like I needed to attend class. I played football. The minute football season was over, I quit school at Christmas.
You were done because you already had your diploma. So
I had my diploma and I was studying stuff that I'd already taken in grade 12.
what was it like hitting the reboot button so many times on, say, your social circle? Because you mentioned that you were doing a high school or you were doing elementary school in Toronto, then you go to a boarding school, and then you come back to Oakville, and you kind of have to restart. Like, how did the football team accept you? This guy being parachuted in for his last year.
Yeah, it was fun. I had a couple of inside guys. I had a couple of buddies there. And you know what? That's interesting. I never thought about that. That's a thread that I've followed my entire life. When I move to a country, I contact my entire database. And I go, I'm moving here. Do you know anybody I can do business with or just hang with and be fun? That's cool and interesting. I did that when I moved to Hong Kong. I did that in LA. I did that in New York. And in a heartbeat, my social situation is completely set up. So I tested it, I guess, in school and then kind of threaded this throughout my whole life.
Do you think that's what helped you become so successful at sales and just business in general? Because let me set it up for you. I went to a different high school from my elementary school, and then no one from my high school went to my university. But I saw when I got to university that there were people that had gone to the same elementary school and the same high school as their school group. So as soon as they got to university, they didn't have the benefit of they basically were like 18, 19, and they had never had to make friends from scratch because that was something they had done when they were 4 or 5 in kindergarten. And do you think because you kept hitting the reboot button again on your social circles, that made it so much easier for you to approach someone like you did with Napoleon? He was working for you with a year and you said, "You know what? Here's a business proposition. Here's a better way of doing it that could be advantageous to both of us." Do you think that gave you I don't know if, I'd say the confidence to do that because a lot of people would not be able to do that in that position where they could
Well,
activate their network.
no, I mean, I think I feel like I moved out of home when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
So, so there's that. Um, and I think actually I was a little bit more of a loner uh until I was like 16, 17. And then I just said, I'm throwing it all out the window. Um, Left high school in Oakville and wanted to travel and got myself a job in Banff. I applied for, oh my God, how many international jobs? And I got a job because I'd been busing for restaurants. I'd been a waiter when I was 17, 18. And I got a job, or 16, 17. I got a job just before I turned 18 to go to Banff Resort. And it was like, go West, young man. And I worked 3 double shifts, 4 days a week, and then skied 3 days every day for the entire winter. And then I moved to California, just packed everything up, crossed the border, got denied, took a taxi over, and then got another.
Really? Hold on. You gotta stop. How did you get denied though? Like
Well, because I had a letter I'd written to somebody saying I'm moving down to California. I had no visa and stuff, right? So anyway, Trump, if you're listening, anyway,
oh god. But
but yeah,
did you I know you need a visa to work in the United States, but did you need a visa just to get over the you didn't need a visa to get over the border
no,
back
but
then?
they'll if they think you're going to come down and
Ah,
have any
okay.
intention to work, right? So
Gotcha.
so anyway, got around that. Yeah. So that and then that led to like some very funny stories, like losing my I literally spent I got a place to stay in Fort Ord on the army base. And then I went
Hold on a second.
I arrived in the
Hold on. How did you go from being denied entry to the United States to then crashing at an army base?
I know. I had a friend who put me up, and I was staying at a captain's, a guy who was like a helicopter captain who'd served in the Vietnam War. He was super cool, and he spent the entire evening with me figuring out how I could potentially have a work and figure it out. And the next morning, I took a bus down to Carmel, interviewed in a dozen restaurants, didn't have a way to get back actually, because I missed the last bus. I realized I didn't have enough money, and I never wrote down the address of where I was staying.
God.
So I spent the night in Carmel. I found a doorstep, covered myself up, had a little bit of money to buy a newspaper, woke up with flashlights in my face, police
No.
officers, and I show them my Canadian passport. They take me for breakfast and give me money for the bus back.
Wow, this is a far cry from the stories we're hearing now where people are, like, taken to Texas and held for, like, a month
I
before being
know,
shipped
you know
back.
what? I've always done well with US law enforcement, thank God. But and then I arrived at Fort Ord at 9 in the morning or 8 in the morning, and I didn't have an address. It took me till 6 PM to find the house because every house looks the same on an army base.
Mm.
So I went missing for like 24 hours.
So that line you just gave us that, "I've always done well with, US law enforcement," you need to put that on a T-shirt and cross the border.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
serious.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Could we say that this is really where the hospitality part of your story takes off? Because at some point, you've already mentioned it, you make it to the Hog's Breath. Did I get it right? Clint Eastwood's,
Hogs bread in, yeah,
Hog's
yeah, yeah.
Breath, yeah? But then after that, you came back to Canada and you stayed in hospitality.
Yeah, well, I had a slight diversion, which I didn't get into with you earlier. So I came back. I applied at a job called Bel Air Cafe in Yorkville. Um, the person, or sorry, Bemelman's, and they said I was 18, and they said, "Listen, we don't hire anybody under 21. It's not a legal policy, but it's our policy. Go to our sister restaurant, Bel Air, which is still exists today under another name, Sassafras or something, and tell them you're 21." So now I'm just being told to lie as a living right now. So I'm like, so I go in, tell them I'm 21. I work there for a year, and then not even a year, and then Bemelman's hires me. I'm there for 2 more years, but everyone thinks I'm 3 years older than I am. So I start living this like it creates a lot of funny aftermath stories because people just think I'm much older. I looked older when I was younger, and fortunately, I think I look younger now that I'm older.
Did you have, like, 2 separate birthday parties? Like, ones for the people that knew exactly how old you were and then your work employees?
No, because no one knew. Remember,
Oh,
I'm touching in new life, new start, new friends, everything, right?
good point, yeah. So,
New new
new identity almost
new
completely.
almost like new identity. Yeah, 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 yeah. Come
And
come back to that on the UK thing because it's kinda funny, but anyway.
we'll come back to that. I do wanna ask about the origin of your last name. But before we go any further though, was this kind of the launch pad for you starting your first restaurant? And that was that, Prego della Pizzeria?
Yeah, so, Prego della Piazza.
Piazza. Oh,
Uh,
geez, I'm sorry.
no, 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 it's all good. So I went from Bemelman's and got offered a job to open up a restaurant next to Earl's Tin Palace up on Yonge and Eglinton. When Yonge and Eglinton in Toronto was the only place to go. Downtown didn't exist. There was no restaurants or clubs or anything. So Eglinton was the place. Young and Eligible was nicknamed.
I know that nickname, yep.
And so I opened a restaurant. I ran Earl's for a year, and then I opened up a new restaurant next door to Earl's. I was the assistant general manager at Earl's, and then they said we're opening up a restaurant next door. Now it wasn't my favorite name. It was called Puffin, and
Ooh,
I'm like, so I
like,
used to say, it's called Puffin.
God.
I don't. That the owners had this like thing for this puffin bird from the Arctic. It's a very cute bird. But anyway, I ran that for a year. We were really successful. And then I was approached by people that wanted to start a restaurant and they had ideas in mind. So I scouted for the location, which was it had miserably failed. That's the best thing to find in a restaurant. Find one that has miserably failed and figure out how to make it successful. And it was hidden right in Yorkville behind a church. I got a license to the patio, opened this place up. We were so popular from day one. I used to sleep on the banquettes 2 or 3 nights a week because we were just like double shifts, 7 days a week. TIFF celebrities. You couldn't get a reservation if you didn't call a month in advance or knew me. So it just became huge. I designed a wine list we had the first wines by the glass and oxidation. And we had the entire list by the glass, $100 glass of wine. Um, it was the first kind of non Spanish tapas restaurant. So we did other food,
Oh,
all
okay.
tapa.
Mm.
So we had the first ripped paper on top of the tables, on top of linen. Like we did a lot of firsts. It's still ranked as one of the top 10 restaurants in Toronto history. But we sold it within 2 years.
Was it hard selling that? Because that was kind of like your first
I had a small
baby.
piece.
You had a small piece of
I
it?
had a small piece. It was a great way to launch, to really kickstart my restaurant career. I ran and opened a few other places. And then, I was gonna take, a 15,000 square foot location. I'd saved up a fair amount of money, got a business partner. We put down like 300 grand into a bunch of stuff. And then the major investor who had like 1 million, I had like a buck 50 in, um, got into a divorce settlement, and all his assets were frozen. We lost everything.
No.
Yeah, lost everything. And I'm like, I'm a decade into this business now. And I'm like, so I took a consulting job, which led me to the Cajun restaurant up outside of Toronto. And I'm like, how do I make this thing busy? I'm like, I usually have all my staff follow me, my customers follow me in Toronto. Now I'm like in Vaughan, and I'm doing everything from couponing, this and that. So I finally said, you know what, we're burning a lot of cash here. Let's try advertising. I'd never done advertising. So I bought radio. I A/B tested between two stations, CFNY and Mix 99.9, and they're both great stations. But Mix killed it for me. We went from doing 5,000 a week to 50,000 a week in 4 weeks.
In business, or are you talking about advertising?
I spent 5,000
Oh, so that's what I meant.
a
You were
week,
spending on your
but
media
we
campaigns.
earned 50 grand on the 5,000.
Okay, that was your return on
We
ad
had a
spend.
10x return on it. And then I went, you know what? I'm done with the restaurant business. I had no life. I was, 6 nights a week working. One night I'd go to a restaurant. Everybody knew me, no privacy. And so I said, you know what? I feel like getting into advertising. So that was my, and I convinced Mix to hire me. Then I'm in media.
And we're talking not just about mix, but we're talking about standard. Was it standard broadcasting at this time?
Mix was one of
Standard.
53 stations by Standard Broadcasting. Yeah. Yes. Gary Slate was the owner and the mentor.
Yeah, how did you get into that? Did you, because you're one of their advertisers and you're giving this rep $5,000 a week, and all of a sudden you're calling, I guess, this rep's boss and going, I want their job. I know I'm
Well,
oversimplifying it,
no,
but
but yeah, no, but I didn't want their job. I just wanted to work with them. So they helped me.
gotcha. That's what
They,
I meant, like their
they
job.
were my inside at the time woman. Suzanne was a great sales rep. She got me in through Bill and John Wright, the bosses. And I pitched them. I created a PowerPoint. I pitched them and created a deck much like theirs on me, and sold me into the business. And I was coming in cold, and they gave me like 150 grand guarantee, which is, like I was a newbie. So that was, and then in 5 short years, I was the top sales rep in Canada for three of those five out of like hundreds of reps. So I really I found my calling in doing that.
What from your hospitality experience carried over and helped you? And what gaps did you have to fill?
Um, I think the gaps that I had to fill was just the knowledge of the industry, right? Just understanding. I remember trying to understand the whole idea. They had a computer program that would measure frequency and reach. And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm ever going to get this. And then the light just went on. It was just like X plus Y equals Z. It was like what I learned in school that I'd never learned to apply ever, you know? Just the calculations that I had never applied. I'm like, they say, when am I ever going to apply this stuff in real life? It comes into play when you least expect it.
It does creep up on you, that's for sure. So you've got this successful radio advertising career, and then all of a sudden you do kind of this crazy ass pivot, if we can call it that. You go into print, but not just print, but with time, but you pack a suitcase and you go to Hong Kong.
I know everyone said I was crazy. Well, so there's a little bit of background. I had always wanted, I actually, after I got in there, because I skipped one step, by the way. So
Okay.
while I was working at Bemelman's, a friend of mine said, hey, by the way, they're hiring people to go to Saudi Arabia to work in the airlines. I'm like, what? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just like a 3 month stint. I went, okay, cool. So a month later, I find myself as a flight attendant working in Saudi Arabia. So I was
Okay, that's definitely not in your LinkedIn profile. That's for sure.
I did no,
And
that is not in my profile. So I got a job and also, oh man, we arrived in New York for our training, and then they said, okay, half the crew, there's like 130 people, half are going to go straight to Saudi, half are going to Rome, and it was like AB, you know. Okay, so I went to Rome, and then we got delivered to Saudi, but we didn't have our visas in place, and we got stuck in Cairo for like 2 weeks without any money. It was insane. We got in so much trouble, and then we got sent back to Toronto, and then only 4 of the 65 people were called, me and the 3 other people that quite honestly, we got in the most trouble. And I think they just liked us because we really did get in trouble. And they called us back. And then I went to Saudi and all my friends had been there for like weeks and knew everybody. And so the first day I arrived in Saudi, friends picked me up. Next thing I find, I'm on a yacht and I'm water skiing on the Red Sea.
jeez.
Oh yeah, no, Saudi was like, and then did that for 3 months. I came back to Toronto. They called me back, me and a buddy that I had friends that became, and they said, "Do you want to continue to work?" And so they hired us, but they kept us in New York as Canadians, but they would keep us overseas. So we would land with a crew of 13, like in Rio, and 11 would fly back, and me and my buddy would be there for a week waiting for the next crew. So I spent for a year, 4 weeks a year in every like 5 out of 7 days, 6 out of 7 days in different countries, all around the world. I traveled the world for a year, but I was broke, but it was like awesome.
And they were
So
putting you up in, I assume, the nicest hotels they had and everything?
great. Yeah, we were in great hotels.
Okay, so they took care of you guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And food and stuff like that, but we just didn't have money to do we weren't paid incredibly well. I mean, look at the Air Canada strike. So anyway.
Yeah. So when you moved to Saudi Arabia, there's gotta be some culture shock that hits you. It's gotta be way more than sleeping on someone's
Oh
doorstep in
God.
California.
If I had a picture to show you, so that first day I'm on a sheik's yacht. And I had grown my beard really long. I had hair at the time, and I got the whole I and so I
So
had a
you
whole
had the
out
full attire,
I
like
had
you
the
were blending with the
attire and everything.
locals.
These guys loved me. They would go, "Okay, you're in a compound with 350 flight attendants, 10% are guys." He goes, "We're gonna call you every time we have a party." So it's like so you need to be like so I played chaperone.
Gotcha.
So I got super connected. It was so much fun. I had a blast. There was no culture shock whatsoever, except for the fact you go into this guy's house and and they had vodka and what's it? It was like Smirnoff vodka and Johnny Red. And alcohol is illegal.
Yeah, I was gonna say that had to have shocked you. I would have been like,
Yeah,
"Okay."
and you know they have knee high shag carpeting and dance floors that are raised with lights underneath in their living room. Like it was just that was the bizarre part of the culture, and the heat's immense.
So, at what point do you make the jump to Hong Kong with Time Magazine then?
So working in radio, I thought, shoot, I'm never going to travel again. I never thought not travel again, but I never thought I would live internationally. But then I'm like, so my mom was born in Hong Kong, and I had 2 great grandparents, one grandfather from Scotland and one from Wales, and they moved to China and they married Chinese girls. And then they had a boy and a girl, and that boy and girl, who are both half Asian, marry, and that's my grandmother and grandfather and my mom. So my mom's half Chinese. I don't present as Chinese, obviously, but when I did, when I was young, you know, very unfortunate name, but I remember when I was 5 or 6 years old, kids would call me Chink in a very white Oakville. So I grew up with that kind of, you know, and I obviously don't present as such, but I truly believe in diversity and all of that, and present it at the conference and try to highlight it that I have. So moved to I'm just like, okay, I want to get like I see the convergence of mergers and acquisitions and companies and where things are going. And I'm like, this is gonna happen in radio. And the really fun part of radio, and I didn't want to be death of a salesman, Willie Loman carrying a suitcase at the age of 50, making good money, but like still slugging the streets. So I said, if I want to have a career in media, I need to learn multimedia because everything's going to collide and merge eventually. It hadn't at the time. So
Can I
I,
stop you right there? When you started telling people your theories about it going digital and multimedia and everything else, did anyone kind of shake their head at you and go, "David, you're crazy. That's not gonna
yeah,
happen"?
well, people have said I'm crazy most of my life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, what are you doing? Like, really? Like, when I gave up, I was the top earner in Toronto of hundreds and hundreds of people in the radio business, and I had the best list. I only had to show up for work 2 days a week and still make a few hundred thousand a year. And so it was really set. So everyone thought I was insane to leave this. For me, it was get back to my roots. I had pursued visiting a friend of mine who lived in Asia, who worked for Time Warner, and said, "Dude, just get me an opportunity." So he got me an interview in New York. I had the interview. They gave me a job in Hong Kong, and I literally had my sales assistant fib for me and say he's just on sales calls while I'm interviewing in Hong Kong.
God, because that's what you've gotta do.
Yeah, and I came back, and it was really funny when I gave my notice. Gary called me in his office, and he always knew I'd made it known I wanted to run my own radio station, and he finally said, all right, okay, uh, Edmonton," and I'm like, "Gary, Edmonton, Hong Kong." So he goes, I'm gonna leave any expletives out here, but he's like, "All right, if you ever want to come back, I'll fire somebody." So that's the story later
Okay.
on.
I do wanna hear that after. Wait, the radio station he offered you, was it The Bear by any chance?
Probably, yeah, because I was
Pro
rock, right? So yeah,
I have a
I
little
think the
bit.
Bears in Calgary, is it, or is it Bear in Edmonton?
There might be 2 bears. I have a bit of
Oh,
experience
yeah, he
with
has a series of bears. There were series of mixes. Yeah.
see, I used to work for the old Astral Media, and I was on their digital team. So, there was a bit of carryover from when Astral acquired Standard, and so I used to sell the digital assets to the radio station website. So, when you start throwing out, like, Mix 99.9, I'm like, "Yeah, Virgin Radio right now," or 97.3, which is I think it's Boom still, or it became Boom.
Dude, I
I know.
introduced Gary to Branson and suggested we do Virgin Radio in Canada.
Oh, well, I gotta tell you, it
But
made it
I
easier to
got no
sell.
credit for that deal.
No. It made it easier to sell as a giant network and being able to project that global brand to
Yeah,
people in
and we started
boardrooms.
Iceberg Radio was part of the whole thing, right?
I
And
remember Iceberg, yeah, I
well,
do remember
Iceberg
that.
was part of the Astro, like, that's why Astro really wanted Standard. Iceberg Radio was a bit of a gem in the knot. I mean, you guys had started uh Libra Radio, and Libra, whatever they called. And I found it funny because you were charging a subscription fee, and I'm like, wait, Libra means free.
God, I didn't even catch that.
But that was before the acquisition happened, and anyway, that's later in the story. So yeah.
Okay, so you're in Hong Kong, and one, you're selling a new medium now. So you're selling print and you're in a new marketplace. Are you constrained just to Hong Kong? I shouldn't say constrained, but like just focused solely on Hong Kong? Like, is there enough business in there to keep things going? Or are you going
No,
outside of other
the
parts of
pervade
Asia?
was I had like 6 clients in Hong Kong. Clients like United Airlines, AT&T, very big kind of US clients that I had in my portfolio. But then I got countries. I got Korea and Taiwan as my countries.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm gonna say, like, I love Taiwan, and they had some big manufacturers and big companies out of Taiwan. But Korea I found really fascinating because Korea, you had five chaebols, and I was working with the five chaebols, and they were basically like a mafia. I kind of compare, quite honestly, the old Canadian media's chaebols because they were like old mafia families that ran
Okay.
all the media companies, like Bell and Rogers from the old days, Standard. But that was Samsung, Kia, Hyundai, etc., Daewoo, and I worked and managed all those. I had a rep in each territory that I managed. So management was brand new to me. Print was brand new to me, but print's easy. Okay. It's just easy.
It is easier, yeah.
Compared to radio. But we weren't just selling print. I started doing these, I was the lead on deals that were multi-million dollar deals where I'm selling print, CNN, Asia Week, Time Magazine, In Flight, and the brand new Pathcom. I think it was Pathcom. What was it called? Oh God, I forget now. But it was the brand new Time Warner, and they stupidly, in my opinion, started a brand new thing and put all the sites underneath that. I mean, and then they all realized that was stupid and went back to time.com, fortune.com, asiaweek.com, etc. But I think my first digital deal I did in 99 was like $15,000 in digital and like $1.5 million in like television and print.
That sounds about right, but look, at least you didn't give it away as added value, because that was the theme years ago where it was
We
like,
did not.
perfect, at least
Yes.
you saw the value behind it, because a lot of traditional media companies did that. They're like, "Yeah, give us your digital assets and we'll put them in rotation on the site for free."
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, Canada, when I came back in 2005, they were still doing that. And I went, this, we haven't been doing that for years in the US. Why are we doing this up here? This is insane. We need to charge for this.
Yeah,
So that
I've
was a
seen
big
that.
switch.
No, it's definitely something that I've seen in my career. So, okay, so what drew you then to New York? Because it seems like you were, again, having the time of your life in Hong Kong. You mentioned that you were reconnecting with your roots, working all of these different markets, learning a new medium, and above all, you mentioned that multimedia was the way to go. And it sounds like you were doing a lot of multimedia deals that you had the foresight to see were going to be popular. So then why all of a sudden did you decide to make the move to New York and with, I've got Shift Multimedia?
Well, so my boss, who had helped me get the interview, but said, "You're on your own," half of that. But then I ended up reporting into him, though he lived in Singapore, not Hong Kong. But he had left, moved to New York, and I'm thinking, okay, you know what? 2 years as an expat living in Hong Kong, it's been great, loved it, but I wouldn't mind being stateside, not Canada, stateside. I want to get some stateside experience because then I'm also thinking international experience, Canada, Hong Kong, Asia Pacific. Like I either need like EMEA or more importantly, probably US experience to really round out my international experience. So he called me up and said there's an opportunity at Shift. I considered that. Another friend of mine, oh my God, I could have made a complete career change. Another friend of mine wanted me to get into finance.
Well,
Uh,
that would have been a big U-turn.
yeah, and what was funny was I said, kind of put your money where your mouth is, and then his lawyer, my lawyer, and the money was transferred, and no one ever let me know. So I accepted the offer with Shift, and my buddy goes, "Dude, what happened?" I go, "Well, you never sent the money." He goes, "I sent the money." So yeah, and God rest his soul. He has passed, unfortunately. But great guy. And he said, dude, I said the money. Anyway, so I went to Shift Magazine, and in 6 short months, my boss came to me, and I was running the East Coast, and it was fun. We were like in this giant loft space right in Soho, and there was like three of us there on shift, and we shared it with another company who had just launched in the US as well, with these three crazy guys that were running this company who I respected, but they were crazy. And we used to do these chair races down, like at the end of the day, you'd roll the chairs down the space and see who could end at the end with beers in your hand. And those were the Vice Boys, Sharouche. Yeah. So I used to hang out with them for 6 months. Um, and then I got my boss calls me and says, dude, you might want to start looking for a job because the parent company's been crushed in the market. We have no money. We're not going to last very long. And so he tells me this. I'm in LA a week later. I run into a friend of mine from Toronto at, oh God, what hotel was it? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Mondrian. And he goes, dude, great seeing you, blah, blah, blah. Why do you come to this house party in the hills? I go to the house party, and it turns out to be a guy's house who has bought advertising from me under Shift for this thing called UGO. And
Mm.
UGO is this underground online. They used to sell physical DVDs for gaming, and they realized physical was going away. It was all going digital, but they had this like huge 10, 15 million audience that they turned it into 150 million users eventually. And they converted it into an advertising play and hired the ex-president of MTV, who hired a bunch of MTV folk. So when I joined, so he said, and I said, well, it sounds like you need someone to run sponsorships, like that cool, impactful, really cool stuff. He goes, yeah. I said, but I need someone in e-commerce too. So he made me vice president of e-commerce and sponsorship. And I had no clue what I was doing. I mean, I had no clue. I show up for work. I've got 300 emails in my inbox unopened. I've got 10 meetings a day, every day of the week booked for 3 months in advance. I'm like, anyway, it was, deep end. And that's what you know what? Deep end's been a lot of what I do. So it was deep end.
Did that make you anxious? Like seeing 300 emails in your inbox, being booked into back-to-back meetings, not being able to do anything that you probably need to do to move the business forward?
No, unfortunately, it made me work about 16 hours a day.
Oh, okay.
I'd go in at, 7 a.m., but I was always, so I'm a little bit of a old school person when it comes to that. I think I've toned myself down definitively now. Wirecarbon's a virtual company, but I remember when I hired people on the queue and I'd say, okay, so I show up at 7. I don't expect you to be here at 7. Um, and I don't leave before probably 7. I don't want to see you seeing, I want to see you here before 9, and I don't want you watching the clock for 5. And if you're not going to show up Saturdays, don't bother coming in Sundays. That was a joke, but it set the tone.
It definitely would. Do you tell them it's a joke, or do you just set the tone and then eventually tell them it's a
I
joke? Yeah.
just laugh.
Okay. I was gonna say, I thought maybe you'd watch them come in on Saturday and be like, "No, I was
But
just
I mean,
kidding."
so when I worked for Gary Slade, coming from the restaurant business, I by chance had moved out to Mississauga, which was the worst move possible because I'd lived around the corner when I just started. I would leave. I hate rush hour. I hate traffic. I hate wasting that time. So I would show up at the radio station at 5:30 in the morning, along with the morning crew. Gary would come in at 7. He'd see me in, and I was kitty cornered to his office. So he saw me in the office before he got to work every morning. The morning crew would laugh and say, "We see a salesperson already at work before we get here," um, and and then I'd be out selling for the entire day. So after 6 months of that, I suggest to anybody, show up before your boss for 6 months, and then they will never care where you are.
That's a very good point. Yes. If the numbers are taking care of
As
themselves,
long as
then
the numbers are
yeah.
taken care of course.
Okay, so when you would come in that early at say 5:30, what would you do? Like, how would you prep for your day between 5:30 and 9? Because a lot of the clients, I mean, you could theoretically send emails that early, even though I know a lot of clients don't like receiving emails until after 9. But theoretically, like, what would you be doing to prep for your day?
Well, at the
Because
beginning, I would send faxes.
okay, faxes.
I
But
was the
you
first person with a computer. I had a guy clacking on a typewriter next to me while I was still on a computer. um, yeah, I would. So we had a list system. So it was like, listen, this is just if you want an analogy, it's an early bird story, right?
yeah, go for it.
So I would get there, go into the book. I would read Globe Mail, Star, Sun, everywhere, anyone that's advertising. I would look at the business section, announcements of new companies coming to town, and then I would list those companies. No one could ever list anything in front of me. So I beat everybody to the punch in that way. I would send, I would send 10 fax joke. I would send a fax joke out to all my current clients and prospective clients. So I would fax a joke to all my clients.
I would love to. Can you tell us one of those jokes? Come on.
I don't remember them, man. It was like, oh, I do remember one. There was a very funny one that's funny you say that. That someone in the, I guess, downtown core in the financial world had posted, and it was meant to be posted inside the stall of a toilet, and it said, "We're cost cutting." It was very long and polite and this and that, but essentially, you because you get drawn into it, we're cost cutting, da 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 da. We're cutting back on toilet paper, etc. So all the stalls are time sensitive. So if after 3 minutes the door is going to unlatch and you're going to
Oh God. There was, I had a similar joke like that played on me once. It was just a sticker someone had thrown up on the door, and it looked like a very serious sticker, and it said, "The toilet camera is for scientific purposes only."
that's actually funny.
And I was just like, "Whoa, that's a good
Yeah,
one."
that's cute.
Okay, so you're still in New York at this point, and then after Yu-Gi-Oh, you moved to Promenade Magazine. Is
Yeah.
this your last go around in New York City?
Yeah, yes. Because I was trying to do another go, which failed, unfortunately. And I'm going to say that, I've failed many, many times in trying to start things. So like not everything has been a success. Um, and so Promenade was owned by my best friend's wife, and it was an old school developed in, oh my God, wherever, whatever, 87 or something, like not 87, even before. It was like it was the first hotel magazine ever introduced in New York, period. Like I think it was maybe 47. Like it was really old. Anyway, and so they had no digital, like they still had a Rolodex and stuff, and they wanted to sell it. And I said, you can't sell the company like this. You need to so give me 6 months. Let me bring you into the digital world. Let me create a CRM. Let's get everything online. Let's get everything sorted. Let's create a sales system for you digitally. And then going through the Rolodex, swear to God, Trump would have been there. Every single president, like it was the most unbelievable Rolodex I've ever seen in my life. And so I made them digital. They sold the magazine. And I wanted to start an international rep shop. So I was looking to do what I'd done basically because I had connections in Europe and Asia. And also print was on a decline from digital. So everyone was hunkering down and they're shutting down their foreign offices. And I'm like, great opportunity to start a rep shop. I'll just rep everything. So um, I had a deal almost signed with Hachette. And I went in on the Monday morning with Jack Klieger to sign the deal and get it done. And John had crashed his plane over the weekend and died.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and it
So
was
so George Magazine was part of that then?
correct. And it was just
Okay.
such a dark and Jack's like, everything is frozen. I can't do anything right now. And I was kind of like, the towers had fallen. I lived one block from the towers. We had all these threats in New York. I'd already gone through the dot-com crash at UGO. We went from 300 employees to 35. Like there was just, I love New York. I never thought I'd leave, but then I call these green lights and red lights. And I think in life, you have to recognize the green lights you experience and embrace them and pursue them. And then you've got to recognize the red lights you experience and say, all right, time for a timeout or a change. So all these things went, you know what? I, I, I think I gotta go back to Canada. That was what the causation was for me to say, you know what? Let me reconsider Canada. And then I picked up the phone and called Gary and said, you need a digital division.
And because it was a new division, I guess you didn't have to fire anyone to bring you back?
Well,
Okay.
so
You
actually,
teed that up about 20 minutes ago.
yeah. So a year, he asked me, he said, and Gary, love him to death, but if you quit on him, you have to pay a little bit of penance to come back. I
Oh,
think Gary would appreciate this story if he ever heard it. I learned so much from him. I have a huge amount of respect for Gary. But anyway, so you have to pay a little bit of penance. And so he asked me to help out with a station he just bought, Flow 93.5. So I went to help out there for a period of time. And then I came back to Standard and I wrote him a white paper on a digital division. I reported into his number two, Jean-Marie Heimrath, who's another wonderful mentor. And he always says condense things a lot. And I sometimes forget he's told me that because I elaborate a lot. But anyway, and that's when we started the digital division because no one had one. Bell didn't have one. Rogers didn't have one. And the thing is, like, I start this thing from scratch. We blow up 53 different radio station websites. It took me I had 5 minutes to sell Gary on spending like $1 million on DoubleClick and increasing his budget on spending on websites and building it all out. And he's like,
and when you say double click, you mean ad serving software, so you can actually
correct,
physically run the ads.
correct. The whole thing, like just
Yeah.
setting it up all properly. And I built a national sales team, local sales team. And then, it was like, then I told Gary we need video. It's like, well, people are watching video, aren't listening to my radio station. And I like, dude, they're going to be spending it somewhere else. So I convinced him. Literally 24 hours later, he emailed 53 program directors. He goes, UK is putting video on all the websites. And then I'm like, yeah. So
Gary sounds like the Vince McMahon of radio. 'Cause, let me set that up a little bit. Have you watched the documentary on
I
Netflix,
have,
Mr.
I
McMahon?
have, I
Yeah,
have, I have.
tri so you know what I'm talking about, where Triple H and Shawn Michaels, do that send off for the guys that are going to WCW, and then Vince pulls them aside and says, "Well, I've gotta make sure that I make an example of you." So he basically puts them in the doghouse for about 3 or 4 months.
Oh, I'm gonna, some comparisons,
Okay.
you know. But Gary is one of the most generous sponsors in Canada to charity. Like it's unbelievable. Like that's actually where I a lot of my companies have always contributed to charity, and I got that charitable instinct from Gary. So
Gotcha, okay. And then your time at Standard Interactive then and Standard Broadcasting in general, did that end with the sale to Astral Media, or did you move on before that
I saw
happened?
the writing on the wall because he initially wanted to go public.
Okay.
And so I was doing a lot of I spent less time selling and driving the business than I did running reports and like, oh my God, I need this spreadsheet and this spreadsheet and this spreadsheet. And I kind of hate that. And
I was gonna say, for a guy who has made a career out of sales and is always interacting with people and is always on the move, that must have been really difficult for you.
well, I've learned operational because it's a necessary requirement. But it's not my passion. So I'd rather have a good operating partner than have to do it all myself. And that's been my nature with choosing the partners that I have, business partners I have, and although my fiance is definitely my operating partner.
Happy wife, happy life.
Percent.
Yes.
So I saw the writing on the wall, and I was looking to expand Standard's audience, and I happened to be in New York at a conference, and I ran into Heavy.com, and I knew the brand, and I'm like, you know what, this could be an awesome add to the brand. But then when I made the decision to leave, I called up the CEO Simon, who's also been an incredible mentor to me, Simon Assad, who had launched Heavy, and I said, dude, you know what? I'd just like to launch Heavy in Canada. He goes, oh my God, I actually wanted to ask you, but I didn't know if it was appropriate. So I flew down to New York the next day. He offered the job over the weekend. Um, I called up a guy named Andrew Black, who I'd met, who was another mentor, who launched Virgin Radio in Canada and actually Virgin Mobile. Sorry, not radio, Virgin Mobile in Canada. And he helped me look through the contract, employment contract, and everything. And I took the job and I launched Heavy.com in Canada. And then Andrew called me up months later and goes, "Did you get the job?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Right, I want to spend like $250,000 with you."
Oh, that's a nice phone call.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Um. Anyway, so that's when I launched Heavy in Canada. And that was awesome and creative and wonderful. And I learned that if you're launching, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, today that are, you know, of a certain age that find themselves out of work, but are incredibly talented. And I say, you know what? Look out of town. Look to launch a U.S. company here or a foreign company in Canada because the roots and how to grow this. And unfortunately, a lot of foreign companies just think Canada's just another state, and it's not. You have to do so differently here, and they need education on this. So I've made a career over the last 30 years educating U.S. companies or foreign companies on how to do business in Canada.
Done something similar in the past as well, and even in my current job, because I work for an American company and I have to tell them we don't do it like that. What's the biggest thing that, like, when you're presenting to Americans and letting them know the differences between the 2 cultures, what's the biggest thing that catches them?
They just pick up the phone, and depending on the size of the company, they expect a response or an email. They're like, I can't understand why they wouldn't respond. like I'm so important. It's a little bit of a breastfeeding. No, you're not. You know what? And we're always gonna, you know what? Today, even more than ever, but even before, we're giving preference to Canadian companies a lot,
Yeah.
right? Today more so, with everything that's happening. But you need to break bread with people here.
Yes, you do.
Like I lived in Hong Kong. It was very, very personal relationship based. Um, I've done business. I lived in London for 2 years. If you didn't have a pint in the pub, you're not doing any business. Like they
No,
just won't.
I
So
completely agree with that. Yeah,
Canada,
especially in Asia, they're very big into that relationship building before they do business with you.
before they do business, I mean, uh, Canada, like land an account, do business. It's not like you have to buy business here. I was very against that. My reps, I'm like, take them for lunch when you've won the deal, but take them for a drink.
Mm,
Meet them for a drink. You don't need to buy the business because that just comes off the wrong way.
it does. I agree with that completely.
You
I
know,
shared the same philosophy with you.
um, but you do need to break bread, and you do need brand awareness. Some of these foreign companies think they are everywhere in the US or in EMEA, and they think everyone knows them. Well, Canada is unique that we don't send our people anywhere.
It's
Rarely do
true.
Canadian agencies, brands, or media companies send their people to all these conferences in the US, which are like dozens. The conference cycle in Canada is so tiny. So
That's the part that I have to talk about all the time. Like, I finally did this with someone once. I was just like, "We have 40 million people here," and they're like, "So?" I go, "That is like Texas plus Ohio."
you know what I say? So I've been saying this for decades. Consider us California.
Yes, or considers California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Canada, if you're a foreign company, US company doing business in Canada, let's not talk about a media company getting automatic spill, but like a tech company or whatever, you might get 5% of your business organically, but you could get 20% of your US business in Canada if you lean in
Mhm.
and give it some love, water it. Because if you don't, you're really just doing that 5%.
Was Heavy.com the last time you worked for someone else?
Yes.
Okay. And so, I mean, we've gone through all of your entrepreneurial ventures. One we didn't touch on that is relatively new, Digital Day Camp. Because
Yes.
we're recording this in August. This is gonna go live in September, and the next Digital Day Camp, correct me if I'm wrong, and, is it October 22nd?
Correct.
October 22nd. So before you go into it, where can people go to get more information on, Digital Day Camp?
www.digitaldaycamp.com.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, we're gonna put it right at the bottom right there.
There we go.
So there you go. So Digital
Um,
Day Camp, the idea, where did it come from, and why is it sort of the anti-conference?
so um, I was on the conference circuit for decades, right? And I was always trying to promote my business or whatever company I worked for, back with Standard Interactive, right up to Q Digital, to Tagger, to whatever. Um, but more often than not, after a few years, I would put my number two in slot. Let them shine, let them have the limelight, let them speak, further their career. And um, and so about I think I'd sold Q 5 years ago. I'd sold I was out of Tagger, and it gave me a chance for a few years to take a bit of a breath, still running Wired Carbon. Um, and I decided to I do the US conference circuit, many of them, and I've been doing it for 20 plus years. So CES, Ad Monsters, DigiDay, IAB, ALM, et cetera, et cetera. And I went to a conference here and it was theater style. So it's like lean back, content, five people on stage pontificating about themselves and their companies. Oh my God, there was one session about clean rooms. Everyone's talking about, I don't know, like they're experts. And at the end of the day, audience hits them with the Q&A and they're like, so what are you doing? And they're, oh, we're just waiting to see what happens in the US. Like
Oh
across,
god.
I'm like, Jesus. So like,
That's
yeah. And you've got, and then you've also got very few senior people. The senior people that go to these things, as a C leader myself, or even people that were underneath me, they show up, they speak, they leave, they get swarmed to the stage with a bunch of salespeople or whatever, trying to meet them, and then they bounce. So executive suite members rarely went to conferences en masse. And I went, there's something really missing here. And then side note, it was kind of funny. I basically, about 5 people came up to me and said, "Are you retired?" And all of a sudden, I didn't feel relevant. I'm like, so
Okay.
anyway, coincidentally, 2 weeks later, I'm in Nashville, and I ran into a guy named Rob Beeler, and, he used to run Ad Monsters, and I sponsored that conference once in Montreal for Wired Carbon. Rob's great. Running conferences is his game, his jam, media, technology. He's an expert. Um, and I said, "Rob, I get a sense that you're not working for Ad Monsters anymore, but you're still speaking." And he said, "Yeah, I started my own thing, and this is my vision. This is what I'm gonna do." And I'm like, "Okay, dude, that's awesome. I don't think that would work in Canada. I mean, it might, but I Toronto really needs a good conference, and no one's really held one here for what I'm thinking of." And so I said, "Want to throw a conference?" And we did it in 90 days, like just like
Wow.
gestated it, got the space. I put the word out. We sold out. And we did one in 23, 24. We had one in the spring. Now we're doing one in the fall. And then next year, I had somebody I sold a company to who said, Kevin Bartis, Ideon. He's awesome. Anyway, he said, "David, you've created something in such a short period that everybody wants to go to, but you tell them they can't go." because because literally companies will call me and go, "I want to send 20 people." I go, "No, I don't want 20 people. I want 3 of your exact leadership team. That's all I want." So leaders, it was tough the first 3 years because I'm calling people up and they're going, "I'll send my number two." And I go, "I don't want your number two. I only want you." You know what I mean? I really want you. I want C suite, and it's leadership led and attended. So the idea is the buy and the sell side get a chance to talk, and ad tech is the glue. So the sponsors are ad tech or vendors from Canada to the US, primarily the US, or even abroad. I have like weekly calls with Israel, who does fantastic ad tech. And that's it was just it was yeah, I rack it up till I got drunk in Nashville.
Nice way to put it. Jeez. Okay, we're gonna
And
be
Rob
bring
is an expert. Like he brings his entire team. I have no idea. Like it's like are starting a hair salon. It's related and symbiotic to my business, but Rob and his team are the wizard behind the scenes, and they know how to run a conference. I put the bums in the seats and the people on the stage.
Okay, David, we're gonna be bringing it home soon with rapid fire questions, but before we go any further, your last name, UK. The origin behind it, what does it stand for?
So my middle name is Urquhart, Scottish,
Okay,
and my last name is Knopf, German. Uh, so my mother gave me her maiden name as my middle name, and my dad and mom split up when I was like 7, and he was a bit distant. So I used to write my name out in full, hyphenated.
gotcha.
Um, I've got a whole lot of pottery here that is hyphenated, and when I was did a lot of art when I was young, and um, I worked at a restaurant, Bemelman's, or sorry, Bel Air first, and they literally the manager's like, "I am not before computers. I'm not writing out David Urquhart Knopf every single time," and he shortened it to UK. So it's stuck there. Then go decades later, I'm living in New York. I'm thinking of coming back to Canada. I go to a friend's club and he's like, "Some guy named David UK is using your name." I'm like, "What?" "Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Someone's calling himself David UK." I'm like, "Are you serious?" And yes. And there I'm not, so I met the guy and he was like, "I'm not doing that." And everyone's like, "Yes, he is. Yes, he is." And he was from Britain, actually. He had moved here, but that just still give him the right because he was a club promoter. He was a shoe salesman and club promoter who was using my name. Um, and then people started calling me the original David UK. I'm like I was an OG before OG became a thing. It was kind of funny. They're like, "No, that's the original David UK." And because it would get these weird looks from people who had met him and then are meeting me. It was like two concentric circles that kind of overlapped of people. And my lawyer, I talked to my lawyer 'cause he started getting into illegal gambling places and drinking places and stuff. And I'm like, "My name," and he was on a dating show
oh,
where he put a bag over a girl's head. It was just so bad. I said, "I got to get this guy out of my life. This is a nightmare for me." And I talked to a lawyer about it. There was one fellow who said, "I'll get rid of him," but I think he meant something else, and I said, "No." and
God.
yeah, seriously. And anyway, short story is that he got busted and was deported. And my problem went away. And I got a call from my lawyer a year later. And he said, "By the way, that thing came through." I'm like, "What is that thing?" He goes, "Oh, we got your trademarked." So it's actually David UKTM. Yeah. And anybody who Britain, I apologize. Whenever I meet somebody who's British, I apologize for my last name. But they go, when they find out it's even trademarked, they're like, "That's so brilliant." So anyway,
Well,
that's the name story.
one of the many amazing stories from David UK. Look, this has been an awesome chat. So let's close things off with rapid fire questions. You ready? Okay, the campaign you're most proud of.
Canadian Contraband. I was this was back in my heavy days, and I created this campaign where it was like a battle of the bands concept, and I got one music label, and then I said, and they were going to offer a contract to the winning band. I got Chorus Radio, and they gave me $250,000 of spots to be involved, and I they didn't even have an ad buy in it. I got $250,000 for the ad buy. As sponsors, Virgin Mobile was one of my sponsors. And I had put together celebrity judges. I had Richard Branson as a judge, head of Universal Music. I had head of Exclaim magazine, Ian Danzig. All these very music focused people. And then what we did, so every band put up songs and videos. They created a video, and then it was the most amount of views each video got, judged by the audience, and then the final three of all the entries would be judged by the professional judges. I held a concert in my courtyard behind me.
Nice.
Yeah. I held a concert. Three of the remaining bands and the winning band. And the winning band, ironically, was called Crown King. They were Crown King. I brought them all up. I became friends with them. Sean, who was the lead singer, was awesome. Taught him how to drink scotch. And then he wanted to change the name of the band. And I'm like going, "Oh, I love coming up with names." And I go, "You do this, you do this, you do this." I helped him develop the name of the band. It was really funny. And then Universal Music signed them. And then he's now a huge DJ. But yeah, it was just so much fun. We had television exposure, interviews, everything.
Your favorite movie.
So I'm going to go a little bit different on this one. Being there, and that comes, and I'm going to jump ahead, and that comes from my favorite book, Being There by Jerzy Kosinski, and it is such a wonderful film, so uplifting. And you know what? If you watch it today, a guy that is a gardener becomes the president of the United States. I think it's a very interesting story compared to today, and it's a little bit of a dichotomy, really. But Jerzy Kosinski is an author I so admired growing up, uh, reading him because he was in a occupied country, um, and basically wrote a number of letters through officials to create an identity to get himself out.
Okay. If Hollywood were to make a movie based on your life story, who would you want to play you?
Well, I don't think my life story is that fascinating as much as this conversation is, and some of the audience might find it interesting. And I've got favorite actors because I've done hundreds of celebrity interviews. My favorite people are like, because I interviewed them and met them, Johnny Depp and Robert Downey Jr. They're awesome. But, I mean, look at me. It's probably more of a Jason Statham, but I'm not really action oriented. So it'd probably be a completely new obscure actor.
Okay, you go for an unknown.
Yeah. Yeah. Let them give a break, and then I can blame them if it's not successful.
Oh God. And so if Hollywood did make this movie based on your life story, what would we call it?
That's a ringer. I don't, what would we call this?
I'd say from one opportunity to another.
You know what? Make your own luck.
That's a great one. Okay.
Yeah, it's just make your own luck.
We already heard what your favorite book is and why. So let's jump to your favorite song.
Um, God, "Stairway to Heaven" was always an incredible song for me, growing up. Um, and then Queen, just, Rhapsody, Bohemian Rhapsody just touches on, because I actually like opera, so it touches on
Okay.
rock to opera to, like, it's got and I think he had 5 octaves. Um, I talked about that. We talk about this with Tara, my fiance, and we're like, is if you were to be like a little bit, you wouldn't know what to say to an artist if you met them. I'm like, there's no one live today, but I'm like, if I met David Bowie face to face, I'd stumble for words of what I would say. And no one else. I don't think anyone else. I'd be like, you know, fine. And I've met tons of them. But yeah. Anyway, doesn't quite it's a mixture answer.
The best advice you have ever received.
Um, the best advice I've ever received has been deep end. Don't be afraid of the deep end. Um, I think someone might have said make your own luck to me. And I prefer to try to quote people on that. I really do. I want to try to give credit where credit's due. Um, you know, I think that self confidence. I think that know you can do anything. Like know that you can absolutely do it. I have tested myself not only business wise or personally, but physically. I've done some health challenges where I've dropped 20% of body fat and 30 pounds in weight in 6 weeks. I've run marathons. Um, and I've run a marathon after I hadn't run a marathon for a decade on a bet.
That's a
Um,
hell of a bet.
yes, I felt like it was almost like I'm going to say, you got to be careful though, because I think some of these moments have almost killed me. So,
Okay.
but I think you got to, I don't know, living your life to the fullest, right? Living to the edge, living on the edge, has kept me alive. I drive motorcycles. I have a motorcycle club. I drive a convertible car so I can have the wind in my hair, etc.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self advice, what would you say?
Um, fiscal responsibility.
Okay. I think that's the first time that's ever come up. I think someone once said buy Apple stock, but
Sure, go back in time. No, I just you know, get some insurance, buy insurance, always buy insurance. By the way, always buy insurance. I learned that at a very young age and have lived by it, and it's been amazing for me. But yeah, better financial responsibility. I wish my dad had got me a checking account, taught me how to invest, or that type of thing. I learned that by the seat of my pants, and I think that's something easy you can teach kids.
my signature closing question, if you weren't in media, what would you be doing and why?
So two loves, art and football.
Oh, okay.
Complete dichotomies again. I grew up loving art. I was artistic, creative. I ran, here I was literally at Lake Field in my last year, head of captain of defense football and head of the art room.
Two
So
things you don't see.
no, and Lake Field, that's the one thing I love about that school is it encourages art and sports. There's no, you don't have that jock mentality. But I loved art. I really did. I always thought I'd be an artist, but my dad was military and had in fact, I'm the first man in my entire lineage that hasn't killed for a living. Yeah,
Okay. Put
but
that on the t-shirt as well.
yeah, but I'm gonna say I have shot firearms, and I've had instructors come up to me and go, "You should do this professionally." And I'm like, "What? Kill people? Like what? What do you like? What do you mean do this professionally?" I'm an expert marksman, but anyway, art and football. I love football. Now I played Canadian football growing up in Canada, but the minute I got out of high school, sure, I quit high school and I immediately joined intramural rugby in Toronto and started playing with the Buccaneers and love playing. And then but at one point, I'm in the restaurant business and I keep coming to work on crutches. It's a weekend
God.
warrior sport.
Yep.
But if I were to be reborn, I don't think I could choose both. So it'd be like football or art.
Well, this podcast or this episode is gonna go live before just as the NFL season starts. So you wanna make any predictions right now? We can revisit it. Who's gonna win the Super Bowl?
Oh God, no, no, I'm not going to make a prediction because you know what? I always win all my pools. And then I just need to take a quick glance at the game. Oh, the Colts.
Okay, the Colts. We heard it here. We'll come back to that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. David, we're gonna end it right there. This has been a fantastic chat. Thanks for stopping by today.
Uh, my pleasure. Much appreciated.